Have you ever imagined having a place you could go to at any time where no one knows your location and no one can reach you? This man decided to build a secret underground hideout beneath his property, somewhere completely inaccessible to others. The whole idea started when he noticed this empty spot and realized he could take advantage of it and turn it into something new. His background in construction is what encouraged him even more to take this step and build his only secret shelter. What's even more challenging is that he planned to build it entirely by hand, step by step. So let's see together how he's going to execute this idea. And before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. The first thing he began with was marking the area of the pit where he intended to build the hideout. He outlined it carefully to make sure he wouldn't go beyond the boundaries he had set. After that, the excavator started digging the ground. He brought in this machine because they needed to dig deep underground and the soil was hard and compacted, making it impossible to remove all that dirt by hand. If he had tried to dig everything manually, he would probably still be working on it until now without finishing anything. Thankfully, once the excavator completed its job, he began removing the loose soil from the sides of the pit, transferring it and leveling the area to ensure that no dirt would fall back inside. After leveling the sides completely, he brought a ladder and placed it inside the pit so he could easily climb up and down. Using a shovel, he then moved on to the second stage, which involved removing all the rocks and small pieces of debris from the ground. He also dug very carefully along the walls, refining the floor from the edges. This part of the excavation is extremely precise, and he worked very slowly and carefully to avoid any problems. After that, he continued digging by himself, going even deeper underground. He wanted to make it slightly deeper than it already was, but after all that digging, the hideout filled up with soil again. So he removed all of it with the shovel to create more space for himself and work comfortably. After removing all the soil from the pit, he marked out a square shape on the ground. He then dug deeply inside that marked area. After that, he brought concrete blocks, large wooden planks, and a large quantity of soil that was different from the original soil of the hideout. He spread this new soil inside the pit, covering the entire floor surface. Then he lowered the concrete blocks and stacked them along the walls, placing them one on top of the other without using anything to bind them together at this stage. Now we move on to a completely different phase, no more digging. This stage is about protecting the floor. After cleaning the surface thoroughly, he brought thick black plastic sheets made of insulating materials. He laid them across the floor and then passed a flame over the surface of the sheets. The heat slightly melts the bottom layer of the membrane, and once it heats up, it adheres firmly to the ground with no gaps at all. This way, the insulation becomes fully secured, protecting the floor from moisture and groundwater, which could completely ruin everything if they seeped in. It also reduces mold, unpleasant odors, and strengthens the foundation overall. After finishing the flooring work, he brought a measuring tape and started measuring the interior space of the hideout to determine exactly where he would build the foundation structure. Once the measurements were taken, he began constructing the main structural frame using bricks and cement to ensure complete stability. He built up one full course of bricks along the surface. Then he brought steel reinforcement bars that would be placed inside the structure of the shelter. He bent them to fit the required dimensions and trimmed any excess so they would match the exact size of the hideout. The thinner steel bars were easy for him to bend quickly. After adjusting the steel bars, he placed them into position inside the hideout. This area was prepared for pouring the concrete, ensuring that the structure would be extremely strong and capable of withstanding any movement or load above it. Once the steel was in place, he carefully aligned and tied the bars together so that the framework would be solid and free of any structural flaws. Now he faced a slightly difficult challenge: how to transport the concrete down into the underground space. After thinking it through, an idea came to him and he immediately began implementing it. He brought several pipes, cut them into sections, and split them open. Then he brought larger pipes and connected them together using the cut sections, fastening them securely with screws. He then brought a large wooden board and placed it over the surface of the hideout so he could pour the mixture onto it. But before starting to pour the concrete, he installed a hose at the opening of the pipe to make the pouring process easier and to prevent any waste of materials. He carefully adjusted the angle of the pipe and finally began pouring the concrete into the container. They used this container to transfer the concrete into its designated position. After that, they distributed it evenly throughout the entire area. He also brought a hose connected to a pump whose function was to spread the concrete into every part of the structure and ensure that there were absolutely no air gaps before it hardened. This step is extremely important. The hideout was starting to take shape, but there was still a very crucial step ahead, one that would make a huge difference and transform the place from just a large pit into a real functional space. That step was building the staircase. He began by marking the area where he would dig to form the staircase. He installed steel bars along the edges so they would act as temporary handrails. After that, he started digging the ground with a shovel. The excavation was difficult because the soil contained roots from a dead tree, but he handled the situation patiently, digging gradually and carefully. Over time, he began shaping the staircase and forming the steps. Don't worry, the shape you saw was not the final form of the stairs. There were still several adjustments to be made. For example, he started leveling the steps with the shovel. Then, very carefully, he removed each step one by one until they completely disappeared and the surface became entirely flat. This prepared the area for the next stage. He went and brought large wooden boards and fastened them together with screws, along with smaller wooden pieces, essentially building the wooden framework for the staircase where the concrete would be poured. First, he secured small wooden posts and attached the large boards to them using screws. After fixing the wood along the sides, he laid a white plastic sheet over the ground. He then brought a steel mesh and positioned it in place. He also cut wooden boards according to the exact dimensions of the steps. Returning to the staircase area, he installed steel reinforcement bars over the plastic sheet, placed the mesh on top of them, and secured the steel bars within the center of the mesh. He installed the first wooden board into the wooden framework of the staircase and secured it very tightly with screws. Then he continued building the rest of the staircase in the same way, carefully adjusting the sides, which would determine the height of each step. After that, he immediately built a wall at the beginning of the staircase, reinforced it with steel bars, and covered it with the insulating membrane. Once the staircase framework was completed, it was time to pour the concrete. To deliver the concrete to every step of the staircase, he brought large wooden boards and fastened them together. Inside, he installed a metal sheet and secured it with screws, then added wooden pieces on top and fixed them firmly. This structure was now ready to receive the concrete. He began pouring the concrete directly into the staircase steps. The process became much easier as they transferred the concrete from the mixer to the staircase using this setup. Of course, they did not forget to use the hose with the pump to ensure that each step was completely filled. After finishing each step, they leveled it carefully so that all surfaces were even. When the prepared concrete started to run out, they mixed a new batch using gravel, cement, and other materials, then continued pouring concrete into the staircase. All the work was done manually, which is why it required a great deal of time and effort. They kept working until nighttime and did not stop at all until the final part of the staircase was completed. That was a major achievement. After the concrete had hardened, they began dismantling the wooden framework piece by piece. The staircase started to reveal itself, and the result was a very solid concrete staircase capable of withstanding significant weight and pressure. Now he moved on to a new stage, the walls of the hideout itself. He brought wooden boards and placed them side by side against the wall, filling the space between the floor structure and the original soil wall. He then started cutting the wooden pieces that would form the framework into which the concrete would be poured. He secured one piece to the wall and backed it with another wooden board. To ensure proper concrete pouring, he carefully measured the boards and calculated everything precisely to avoid any issues and to guarantee that the wall would be flat and strong. After that, he brought a fiber cement board and sealed off the wooden panels with it. After checking the measurements, he removed the board again and installed wooden supports, securing them tightly with screws. Then he reinstalled the fiber cement board and fixed it firmly in place. He repeated this process throughout the entire hideout. On one side of the shelter, there was still some leftover soil from the excavation, so he removed it and cleared the area. He then installed the wooden panels, measured them carefully, and checked whether they were standing at the correct angle. Once he confirmed they were perfectly aligned, he added the wooden supports and secured them. After that, he installed the fiber cement boards. He brought another board and cut an opening in it. This opening was made precisely to the exact size of the pipe. Then he fitted the pipe into the wooden framework and installed a fiberboard around it, allowing the pipe to pass through. He also brought another fiber cement board, cut it into 3 sections, and installed these sections at the top of the walls, fastening them with screws to the wall next to the staircase. Afterward, he installed wooden panels and covered everything with a white plastic membrane, spreading it across all the walls. He placed vertical steel reinforcement bars along the walls and also installed steel bars across the floor, tying them securely to the vertical bars. Then he added additional horizontal reinforcement bars, repeating this process across all the walls. He continued installing steel bars until he formed a complete reinforcement grid throughout the entire hideout. But he did not stop there. He brought a ready-made steel mesh and placed it over the reinforcement bars. Then he brought wooden pieces into the hideout and began fastening them together with screws to create another wall structure. After that, he attached wide wooden boards to this structure and positioned them next to the existing wall. In the section where the pipe was located, he cut out an opening for it, making sure not to overlook that detail. He also installed additional wooden pieces to secure the 2 sections together. On the floor, he installed a large wooden brace and fixed wooden boards to it in order to support the walls and prevent them from collapsing for any reason. He also installed a large cross brace between the 2 walls and secured all 4 walls firmly. Now he was finally ready to pour the concrete. He adjusted the alignment and reinforced the structure from below using wooden boards. The concrete began pouring down from above, and he distributed it carefully throughout the designated area. After pouring the first section, he installed the remaining wall panels, secured them with wooden pieces, and repeated the same process for all the walls of the hideout. To pour the remaining concrete into the walls, he built a complex wooden platform across the ceiling of the hideout so he could stand on it while pouring the concrete. The mixer started operating, and the concrete began flowing onto the walls. In the areas where the concrete did not reach properly, he filled a container with concrete and manually poured it into the spots that needed it. After the concrete had fully hardened, he began removing all the wood that had been installed as part of the structural framework. He started with the wooden forms around the staircase, then removed the supports that had been holding the wooden structure in place, as well as the large brace that had been installed on the floor. He then installed a large wooden beam across the ceiling and secured it with wooden panels both underneath and above it. On top of that, he added additional wooden beams. The entire ceiling was then covered with thick, strong wooden boards. Inside the hideout, he reinforced the ceiling further with wooden posts positioned throughout the space. Above, he covered the ceiling again with wide wooden boards and fastened them securely with screws to ensure there were absolutely no gaps left. He sealed all the small spaces between the boards using silicone sealant. Over the wooden surface, he spread a large waterproof membrane across the entire sucf and secured it tightly, trimming away any excess material. On top of the membrane, he brought steel reinforcement bars, cut them to match the ceiling's dimensions, and began placing them side by side, leaving equal spacing between each bar. He then added additional reinforcement bars crosswise, forming a steel grid over the ceiling. He tied the bars together using thin steel wire so they would function as one unified structure. Any excess steel was bent into position by hand. After that, he went back down and installed another wooden support column beneath the ceiling to further strengthen it and ensure that the other support posts were securely carrying the load. He also brought large wooden boards and placed them along the wall next to the staircase, securing them with wooden braces. In the staircase steps, he created openings to install steel bars that would serve as the staircase handrail. He fixed steel bars onto the wooden panels next to the staircase and placed a wooden board over the top of the stairs, adding additional wooden pieces along the sides for support and reinforcing them with more wooden braces. After all that work, it was finally time to pour the ceiling slab. He transported the concrete using containers, distributed it evenly across the surface, and carefully leveled it to ensure it was completely even. By this point, the day had come to an end, but he was still continuing work on the ceiling. He kept working into the next day. The ceiling was not completely finished yet, but he remained persistent. He continued pouring and spreading the concrete across the ceiling surface. After completing the ceiling, he moved to the staircase and poured concrete along the sides of the stairs, spreading and leveling it very carefully. Once the concrete had hardened, he began removing the wooden framework that had been supporting and shaping the concrete. He dismantled the wooden pieces one by one. This step was somewhat difficult because after the concrete pour, the space had become tight and the wood had been firmly secured, making it hard to remove easily. After finishing that, he started filling the gaps between the hideout structure and the original surrounding wall with bricks. He carefully leveled and compacted them. He also backfilled with some of the soil he had previously excavated and removed. Then he removed the membrane covering the concrete and heated it with a flame to ensure proper sealing. Once everything outside was cleared, he brought a black waterproofing compound and began coating the exterior concrete surfaces to prevent them from absorbing water and to protect the hideout from moisture, mold, and any external damage. He also cleaned the entire ceiling and applied the same protective coating to it. After finishing the exterior waterproofing, he brought insulation boards, opened them, and used expanding foam adhesive to attach them to the outer walls. He applied the foam to the insulation panels themselves and secured them over the ceiling as well. He placed concrete blocks on top to ensure the insulation panels remained firmly in place. He also applied foam between the panels to bind them tightly together. Then he laid a transparent plastic sheet over the insulation and placed more concrete blocks on top. After all that, he backfilled the soil from the surrounding area over the ceiling and filled the gaps around the sides of the hideout, covering it completely with soil from every direction. He added another layer of soil on top, fully burying the hideout underground. Inside the hideout, he began removing all the remaining wooden supports that had been holding the concrete structure in place. This step took a long time because there was a large amount of wood and it had been secured very tightly. After removing the wooden supports from the ceiling, he opened and removed the plastic membrane, then began clearing out the hideout completely. He also removed the wooden structure from the staircase. There were still some wooden pieces attached to the walls, so he carefully dismantled them piece by piece until the hideout was entirely empty. There were some uneven sections on the walls, so he used a grinder to smooth them down thoroughly, leveling all the surfaces so they were perfectly even. After that, he swept the floor and cleaned it carefully. This man built a fully insulated and protected secret underground hideout entirely from scratch. It is safeguarded against external elements and includes a complete living space equipped with plumbing and electricity, somewhere anyone could realistically live. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what impressed you the most, and don't forget to tell me what kind of unusual challenges you would like to see next on the channel. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.